Hi everyone. So in this video, we'll be discussing about microservices. So the agenda for this video is introduction to microservices, and I have divided this uh, tutorial into 11 parts. So this is the first part, introduction to microservices. So let's begin. So what is a microservice? Microservices architecture style is a method to create an application as a set of small services that runs its process and interact with lightweight mechanism, usually an HTTP resource API. Microservices developed based on business features and deployed independently by an automated deployment machinery. There is less centralized management of microservices that may be written in various programming languages and utilize diverse data storage technologies. For example, in an e-commerce site, payment service could be written in C++, while order management service could be written in Java. Amazon is regarded as the first company to get microservices and APIs right. Amazon delivers 50 million deployments annually without coordination between teams when deploying services. Isn't that great? Now, what is the difference between microservice and SOA, service-oriented architecture? To quickly summarize, main difference between service-oriented architecture and microservice is size and scope. Microservice could be considered as a subset of service-oriented architecture. So this is the diagram for decomposition. So basically, the application is decomposed into microservices based on two categories. First is decomposed by business capabilities. In this category, the services are created based on the business capabilities. For example, in retail e-commerce, we have categories like billing, payment, order management, promotions, and these categories can be made into separate services. And the second category is decomposed by subdomain, uh, domain-driven design. So basically, in this, it is based on the reality of business as akin to use cases. And wrong decomposition could impact at the architectural level, right? So now, what are the application types? Applications are broadly classified into two types. First one is monolithic architecture, and second one is microservice architecture. Monolithic architecture is when an application is built as a single unit, and microservices, as we discussed earlier, where many applications handle a small portion of the functionality and data. We will be discussing both these types in details in a later part of the video. So let's discuss about monolithic style. So as you can see in the diagram, a monolithic application is built as a single unit, one big application in a single language that handles all of the functionality, data, and business logic. And a load balancer distributes requests from the end user across multiple machines, each running one instance of our application. All logic for handling a request runs in a single process only. That allows you to utilize the primary features of the language to divide up the application into classes, functions, and namespaces. Now, what are the advantages of a monolithic architecture? So there are various advantages when it comes to monolithic style. So first one is faster initial development. So if you have one application, it would be relatively easy to add additional features, especially when the application is very small or relatively small. And second advantage can be little user confusion. So basically, developers need not to have to learn about different applications, but would focus towards one single application. And third advantage that can be is improved integration, because it's a standalone application or single application. It's easier to integrate with each other and easily. Now, what are the disadvantages of monolithic style? Because these days the application are like leaning towards microservices architecture. So why is the monolithic style is not in fashion these days? So the first disadvantage of monolithic style is single point of failure. If any single application function or component fails, then the entire application goes down. For example, a web application with separate functions handling tasks like payment, login, history, and suppose a function begins to consume more memory or CPU. In this scenario, the entire application will come to a halt. And second disadvantage is horizontal scaling. Scaling applications can only be accompanied by deploying the same var file or what you call ER packages in more servers, right? This is what exactly is scaling. Every single copy of the application in different servers will use the same number of primary resources, which is not a very effective way to design. And as application grows, the code base also grows with it, which can overload IDs every time it loads the application. It takes a lot of time. Because of that, it reduces the developer productivity as well. And maintenance cost will shoot up exponentially with its size. And setup cost is also very high because you have application is very large, then it would be very difficult to set up the application. So these are some of the disadvantages of monolithic architecture. Uh, because of these disadvantages, microservice architecture is very popular these days. So let's talk about microservice style. So basically, as you can see in the figure, build application as suites of services. Basically, this is called modular approach. Each microservice exposes a common API accessed through the network, and API calls are stitched mostly on the server to produce a page. Although few of this work is executed by a client querying individual microservices. And big enterprise players such as Amazon, Netflix, Uber, eBay, they all have adopted microservices architecture. And these microservices are very scalable. They can be independently deployed, and each service offers a secure module boundary that allows different services to be written in different programming languages, which is very flexible. So what are the advantages of using microservices style? So first advantage is improved fault isolation. So this is the major advantage of microservices. So larger applications can remain unaffected by failure of a single module with microservice style adoption. And it also removes dependencies, and you do not have to commit to any single stack in the long term. The third advantage is easy understanding. Like with the split of functionality, it gives more room for new developers to understand the functionality of a service and make enhancements easily. Easy deployment. Microservice based applications are deployed inside containers that provide very good management. So these are all the advantages that microservices has. So what are the disadvantages that this architecture style has? So first disadvantage is complexity. So basically, deploying microservices can be a little complex, requiring coordination among multiple services, which may not be as straightforward as deployed a monolithic service. Because it's very easy to deploy a monolithic service because it's a single service. So you do not have to deal with so and so number of services. And in case of microservices, most of the time, all these services have their multiple databases, individual databases, and like transaction management among different databases can be a very painful area. Then we have Testing is very cumbersome because each dependent service needs to be confirmed before one can start testing, because if they are not running properly, and because all the applications are interdependent on each other, so before starting the testing, you have to make sure that all applications are up and running. So these are some of the disadvantages that uh, these microservice style has. But despite few disadvantages, the benefit of adopting microservices are a lot more. There are a lot more benefits. Because of that, like, it's pushing many companies towards this microservice style adoption. So this is all we had in this video, and in the next video, we'll be discussing more about microservice architecture.